So, freehold versus leasehold. You would think that you'd just be able to tell by looking at it, but sadly that's not true. The first point, I guess, is that when you go to an estate agent, he will tell you whether it's freehold or leasehold. The difference is about how much interest you have in the land. So a freehold property is exactly what everybody thinks. It's that piece of land with that house on it. It belongs to you forever. It goes from the center of the earth to the edge of the atmosphere, and it all belongs to you. Leasehold property is the same, except that it's known as time in the land. So you're getting exactly what you would get in a freehold property, subject to what I'm going to tell you in a minute, but you're only getting it for a finite period. So you're getting it for 99 years, 125 years, which is the standard these days, or you can get a 999-year lease, depending on the sort of deal that you've done. The point about leases is that they have a superior element to them. They have the freehold reversion, as we call it. And the freehold reversion is what you might call your landlord. Now, the landlord is there to collect the rent and to own the freehold, and at the end of your lease, you get nothing. They get your property back. They owe you nothing, but that's 99, 125 years or 999 years down the road. So for practical purposes, it doesn't really mean anything. Where a landlord is important, however, is where properties have to interact with each other. So let's say that there are two flats made out of a Victorian house. You need a lease because you need to be able to regulate how you relate to the other flat in the house. So if I have a house next door to your house and you make a lot of noise, that's the sort of issue which you might go to the noise abatement people about. But if I have an upstairs neighbour and they're the sort of person who likes to walk around in steel-shod boots at 3 o'clock in the morning, the lease is how you regulate the relationship between you and the upstairs neighbour. It's also how you regulate the other relationships which you have to have with that person, like who's going to fix the roof, who's going to mend the foundations, who's going to buy the building's insurance. And that's where a lease is actually a positive benefit. Now, there is a thing that estate agents like to refer to as share of freehold. It's not freehold, it's a lease. All it means is that when you buy the lease, you're also buying an interest in the freehold reversion, as we call it. So let's say that two people own flats in a Victorian house. The freehold would have originally been owned by a third party who collected the rent. All they've done is sell the freehold to the people who own the flats. So effectively, as an individual, you have two hats on. You are a leaseholder and you're half of the freeholder. And it's the freeholder who will buy the building's insurance. It's the freeholder who will fix the roof and do all those other things that a landlord does for a tenant. In recent years, there's been a lot of talk about getting rid of leases or getting rid of ground rents. This came out of some rather shocking case law relating to freehold houses, which were actually sold as leaseholds with escalating ground rents. That legislation will take a little while to come through. We don't quite know what it's going to look like, but it may also bleed across into the situation I've been describing earlier with a house divided into two flats. It may be that ground rents disappear and you're only paying service charges. It might be that they resurrect the structure known as common hold and make it more user-friendly. We're just going to have to wait and see.